I think we are long overdue for some viewer game analysis, and I've had quite a few entries that I've had to sift through and do some annotations on, so let's get back to it, and I'll throw some of these videos in every now and then in our content that I have prepared for you guys. And I've been pretty good the past few months at preparing content months in advance, so if you send me a game, please take into account I don't rush to the computer right then and analyze it. As some of the people who will know, some of these games were sent to me months ago, but I definitely put it in the queue and my to-do list. I get around to it. And we got a very interesting game for you today where white is an 1800 and black is a 1500. And this is a game in 25 with 5-second increment, along with the other games we're going to be looking at in this set. So, okay, let's kick things off, and we get a Dutch. It hasn't formed yet, so it could be classical, could be Leningrad, could be Stonewall. B3, E6. Now, it's definitely not Leningrad at this point. If we wanted a Leningrad, we're going to go with G6 and D6 with an eventual plan of E5. With E6, we still have the ability to go Stonewall or the classical. So let's keep it going. Bishop B2, Bishop E7, G3, castles, Bishop G2. And it's important to understand the plans that you typically see. And we're taking black's perspective in the game. Now, with the classical Dutch, and Grandmaster Simon Williams is definitely one of the most popular players and strongest proponents of this line. He's done numerous series and even has, I believe, a text on Chessable on the classical Dutch. This next move, H6, this one I put some one question mark on, because that is typically going to weaken squares. I know that H6 could be a precursor to G5, but it can be a bit too much. So what do I recommend here? D6 is the first move, the classical, and then there's typically A5 is going to be somewhere thrown in, and it's a nice subtle move that I might want to play A4 at some point. I may want to go knight A6 after A5 to protect the C7 pawn while keeping some space. You get the B4 square under control. And then the other plan, which you also see in the Grand Prix attack of the Sicilian from the white side, Queen E8, Queen H5, Knight G4, E5, F4, and everybody, including the bishop, gets involved in this attack. And when you're playing these types of positions, it's the Queen E8, Queen H5 plan. If you do not win tactically in the middle game, you lose from overextension in the end game. And this example will be pretty solid for those playing white and understanding it. We also see ideas with Knight E4. So it's a combination of these three plans, or two or one. So that's essentially all that black has at his disposal in this position. And I like Queen E8, and we see A5, Knight C6, Bishop D8, and we can even play for E5 here, and this is one of the more stable plans. So I guess option number 4, if you will, in the position, if white has played a wait around structure, not played for some E4 break. So okay, coming back to the main game, we've got H6, castles, D6, C4, and after knight BD7, this is normally a no-no square. If H6 hadn't been played, knight G5 is just really not fun at all. So maybe H6 was really wanting to prepare playing this awkward structure, but, you know, what can you do? Okay, so Queen C2. If this was played in the main game, we would get knight E4 and then C5, and you get a dynamic position. Rook E1 was played in the main game. Still, Rook E1, that's the first move by white that I really don't like, as it's telegraphing that you want to play E4 at some point, and you're encouraging black to make a move that he wants to make anyway. I would have much rather have seen knight D2 or knight C3, and these are typical moves. Knight C3 is a bit better, as we're threatening D5. And If knight e4 now takes, knight d2, d5, and then I believe cd is going to be more accurate than f3 immediately. Can we even play f3 here? Yeah. So these are normal ideas to break up the structure for white against the classical Dutch. So rook e1, I think it badly misplaces the rook and encourages black to have a constructive plan. Here, I believe the wrong knight was captured. We would rather take the knight on d2 because it still hampers, the knight on c3 hampers the bishop on b2's vision, so to speak. And this is a critical moment of the game because kind of everything is pointing at white breaking things open with e4. The rook on e1 could be justified, the knight on d2, the bishop on g2. Everybody wants e4 to happen. So I think d5, you change your structure, you admit that you're slightly worse, and you just do the best you can here. Well, in the main game, g5 was played, and this already is just absolutely hated by the engine. That's like it values white at nearly a piece up at this point, if not more. So after e4, we're immediately having to backpedal, f4, and we're playing all or nothing chess. Takes, rook f6, queen h5, and everything's going swimmingly for white. e5, queen g4, and now here, a big evaluation drop. You got enough material with white. This is a key moment to not get greedy. I feel like bishop takes b7 is extreme overkill here, and the engine cuts white from like having a 4-pawn edge down to like a pawn edge, as the only thing black has is going all out for an attack. Understanding that your opponent is in all-out attack mode, if you can just trade a few of these attackers off, the game is done. Because any endgame that black makes it to, he's completely toast here. So I would much rather see e takes d6 to kick things off, because we go, all right, I'm opening up the rook file. I'm going to take on e6 if you don't defend it. That makes that pawn weak. Now I go knight e4. Now, g takes f4. Most people can't stand opening up their king side, but there's a nice idea here. Rook g6. We're going to go rook e3. And we have the very simple idea of rook g3 after that. Or knight g3. Anything to plug the king side. And black's left with a ruined pawn structure, down material, and little to no prospects to make any sort of attack work here. Hopefully I've made my case. So, key moment here. Play what is called for in the position. Greed is typically not good. Bishop h5, queen h3. At least the bishop is pinned. But now, starting to see how things are coming together for black. Takes here, gets rid of one piece. Knight e4. Bishop g6. Queen h8. And we have a very, very critical moment again. We need to try to trade down some of these attackers. We see the writing on the wall here. The white king is in a tomb. If black has any efficient sacrifice, the game is going to be over, as white forces are plugged outside of the king side. So if you're a pause your video type of person, how can you dissipate this attack with white? It's a good defensive position. And I'll even flip it around for you for a moment. We'll take a look at it from white's perspective. Pause your video, white to play. All right, hopefully you took time. And again, e takes d6 is the better way to go. And then a very, very important defensive maneuver. h4. If g takes h3 with no knights, our king actually uses the h-pawn as a shield. And if bishop takes h4, notice how badly the engine just wants to get rid of the attack. Here, d5 with the discovery, giving up the bishop to force the trade of queens, where we end up in an equalish rook and pawn ending. It's hard for me to evaluate, so I'm just going to put unclear on that one. All right, back to the main game. As we take black's perspective again, king h1 was played. And now, after suffering for a bit from the engine standpoint, black actually has a big edge. Starts with king g8, huge threat on the h-pawn, queen g1, and starts to feel bad if you got to play moves like queen g1. The lady is not meant to be on the knight's starting square with no prospects to move. Queen h7. All right, check. Maybe it's too little too late. c5. Oh. We got double question marks on c5 because we've got a move that is an absolute must here. We must with white play h4 because after takes, that defensive idea with king h2, and now white is actually winning with c5 at this juncture. So right idea, wrong execution with c5 here. Rook h8, and he's got the gun. Look out. Nothing can be done about it, though, as takes, and the game ended with a resignation. And these are my favorite types of games to analyze, as it's not a one-sided victory. There are instructive moments for both sides and both players. I was able to hit on some opening ideas for you, as I'm familiar with playing these structures with both colors at some point in my life. And with the engine assistance, I was able to show some of these middle game and defensive ideas with assaulting the king side. But I think the most critical moment of the game was at this juncture. I think any player can look at the position, any tournament player will say, and say that white is better, and can explain why. But the technique here is what will separate players in different classes. My immediate reaction as I was thumbing through the game before analysis was that bishop takes b7 was greedy. We need to get rid of attackers here. So pay attention to what is called for in the position. Like in yesteryear, we had players that, say, 60s, 70s in chess, we would label them as a certain type of player based on their openings. Like the very solid Tigran Petrosian. And the interesting thing is, all those guys could play chess well in all areas, both aggressive and solid. They just preferred, when possible, to play a certain way. Always be asking what is called for in the position. And on that note, we're going to end this viewer game analysis. Thanks for your submissions, and if you'd like for me to take a look at it on the channel, you can see right above me here, you can find my email, and shoot it to me with some specifics on the game, some ratings, etc. And I'll get to it eventually.